The Beautiful Relationships workshop or workshops it basically looks at how we engage in intimate relationships. So these are intimate relationships that we have with other human beings, as opposed to intimate relationships that we can have with nature in special places, or we can have on retreats, for example in an ashram, or with a group of Buddhist practitioners, or just like-minded friends. So what we're going to be talking about this evening is, and the topic is about the community of two and intimate relationships in crisis. And what I'd like to do is to try and draw some parallels with how we would have lived in our communities or our tribal communities for a number of years, for generations, and how the change in the structure and the way that we live has put enormous pressures on our intimate partner relationships. Because today we are effectively, unless we're very lucky, we're in a community of two if we are in an intimate relationship. So that's what I'm going to be exploring. And for me, one of the lights that came on concerning communities was at the beginning of this year, when the Queen was celebrating, I think it was her 60th coronation anniversary. And she walked into, there was a roving journalist in a street somewhere in Lancashire, where they had 60 terrace houses down one side, 60 down the other, and it used to be a mining community. And there was a very sweet old couple who this journalist was trying to get to talk about what a wonderful age we live in, and by saying how we've now got space travel, you can be in London in an hour and 20 minutes, we understand DNA and we can replace limbs. And all the old couple would say was, when we first moved here with our parents, when we were this big, we knew everybody, we were in each other's houses, we all looked after each other, and now we're lucky if we know the names of two of our neighbours and if any of them say hello, and all the doors are locked. And for me it was quite profound. It touched me that this old couple said that, you know, that's what we miss in 60 years, that's what they lament, and fine with all the technology, but that's what we miss. So I want to draw some connections between the high rate of the failure of our intimate relationships and the loss of our communities. But the first thing we have to do is probably give a definition of what is an intimate relationship. And in terms of feedback here, if you want to ask some questions as we go, or equally if you want to wait to the end and ask questions, or if you just want to sit, then feel free to interject as you wish. But unfortunately for many people today, when they refer to an intimate relationship, they're very much thinking about sex. So they are missing the point that an intimate relationship, the holistic definition I like to use is it's a place, it's a sacred holding place where we can, with another person, explore and develop physically, emotionally and spiritually. Who here has a definition of an intimate relationship that they'd like to share, perhaps? Somebody else said to me, it's rather an unpleasant expression, oh yeah, I've got an intimate relationship, and I call them my fuck buddy. Not a term I'd like to use, and there is some validity to have what I prefer to call a physical intimacy partner, providing everybody knows what's going on. But in your experience, I mean, if people talk about an intimate relationship, what does it mean for you?
I would like it to mean what you just said, and I think that I hold that in myself. However, my actual relationships have had facets of that, but never really been wholly that. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Not answering exactly maybe what you asked, but
Yeah. No, that's a wonderful insight, and I think up front, I mean, I have to say that if we think of what is the purpose of a human relationship, and an intimate relationship partner is somebody who will nurture us. We nurture each other physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and the goal is to eventually provide the mutual spiritual nourishment such that we can climb together. And the way I describe it is like a pair of mountaineers, where they start from a base of somewhere secure, and then one hacks their way up and breaks the new territory, and they pull the other one up, and they consolidate where they are, and then the other one says, right, we want to go higher, and they'll take the risks and explore, and they'll go higher. And the idea is to reach the goal, which is, I believe the human goal is to, when we expire this physical body, is to hand back that bit of spirit that was given to us in a purer form than we received it. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that's what you should believe in, but that's what I believe in and what nourishes me. And that is the purpose of an intimate relationship. For me, that is the goal. So, intimate relationships are on the break at a faster rate we've ever seen before. Anybody disagree with that? And I've got some interesting statistics, and I don't want to bore you with statistics, but these are quite relevant. And the statistics that I've got, and basically these come from the US, and the reason they come from the United States is because their data seems to be much more readily available than anywhere else here in Europe. But I'm sure, you know, we can draw parallels with what's going on. But the statistics relate to marriages and divorces. And unfortunately, because marriages and divorces are recorded, so they're like legal processes. So if we get married, anybody here got married or divorced? Just me. So when you get married, it's a contract, and when you make the contract, it's recorded, and when the contract is broken, it's recorded. And so marriages and divorces are what I have to work on in terms of being representative of intimate relationships. The other reason that marriages are relevant to intimate relationships is because the two people have at least considered the possibility of there being an emotional part of intimacy as well as a physical. So you don't marry somebody, I hope we don't marry people, unless we both are looking for at least emotional as well as physical intimacy. So that's how to get the measure. And of course, marriages, in terms of intimate relationships, are only a very small part of the picture, because all of us will have what we call today our intimate partner relationships, but they're not written down anywhere. So these are the vast majority of relationships, and they're partnerships or boyfriends and girlfriends. And nobody knows about the statistics of those. But if I see from my early 20s and teenage kids the number of relationships that they define as intimate, that they go through and break just like that, there's a lot more going on than we're aware of. But the marriage statistics are the picture that we've got. So interestingly enough, this says around between the year 2000 and 2010, of people who got married for the first time, 50% of them ended in divorce after 5 years. And then thinking that we'd know better, second marriages, 67% of those marriages fail within 3 years. And then 73% of any third or subsequent marriages fail within 2 years. So you'd think we'd figure it all out, wouldn't you, by that time? And interestingly, 80% of divorces, the reason cited for the divorce is irreconcilable differences.
That could cover a hell of a lot.
It could. But the biggest harbinger of the irreconcilable differences in that period is disagreement over finances and money. And this, to me, as we'll come on to shortly, it resonates with what I call the community of two, and the need, when we're in a community, to feel that we are equally contributing and equally valued for what we put on the communal table. And we're going to go more onto that, but I'm sure you might have experienced when somebody has come to stay with you, and it's great for 2 weeks, and then after 3 weeks they still haven't bought the washing up liquid, or they still haven't paid for any bread, or and they're part of the community, but they're not pulling their weight. So that's what we're going to have a look at. And then, it's finally with the statistics. Divorce or intimate relationship breakdown is seen as the most stressful and hurtful of all the major traumas, including moving house, job loss and bereavement. And also it appears that when we split up from an intimate relationship partner, we're 30% worse off financially. So that could be through what you have to do with shared resources, how much it costs to get divorced. And you see so many couples, I've got friends who have been divorcing for about 8 years because they can't decide on the value of what should be split and how it should be split. And all the time the lawyers are getting richer and richer, and they're getting poorer. And in the end it'll solve itself because there'll be nothing to argue about. But isn't that crazy? So, if we go back to our community models, it's quite fascinating to see how a lot of the strains that we're under now in our community of two would not be there. And in the higher functioning community tribes, where typically the setup would be that you're born as a child into a tribe, and the tribe takes responsibility for you as the child. There is a saying that it takes a village to bring up a child. So as a child, you've got your biological parents, but also you've got uncles, aunts, and you've got neighbours, and you have elders, and you would typically have a spiritual connector known as the shaman or somebody else. And in the higher functioning tribal communities, people would say, I'm going to a christening today, or I'm going to a naming ceremony today. I'm naming my child. And it's not theirs, it's not their biological child, but they all appreciate, the whole community believe they own the child. Of course it has its special biological parents, but it's owned by the child. Which is great, because when you have kids, has anybody got any kids here? And if it happens, you will find that one of the biggest frustrations in intimate relationships today with kids is not having the time to have the kids so that the kids can be natural and wild and free. And in our former communities, we all had our jobs to do. So from our childhood in our tribal communities, it would be recognised what we were good at. And it might be that we were good at finding herbs to make preparations. It might be that we were good at making food. It might be good, we might be skilled at making fur skins. We might be skilled at trapping, growing food or hunting. But we would all know what we were good at, and we would have our role in the community. And that was our job. So there was no wondering about who puts what on the community table. And while we're getting on with our jobs and doing the things, the kids who would be getting in the way, unlike today where they get sat down in front of the big screen nanny, or shouted at or sworn at or told to get lost and thumped, they go out and play with their other kids, they go out and play with their other parents, typically the grandparents, who are the ones that are now looking after the kids and imparting wisdom to them, while their parents are still doing their practical jobs for the community. So there's two big things that make a difference in that we've lost that community, and there's two things we've lost. And the first one is we've lost an environment where there are people who value what we do. And it's not, so if I'm in a partnership with somebody and it's me in a community of two, then I have to say with my partner, well, if I'm doing this and paying for this, then what are you doing? Yeah. And we are all able to contribute different things at different times to our community, whether it's a loving home, whether it's looking after domestic management, or whether it's one going out to work and one doing something else. But there has to be an equality of contribution to how we survive. And in our communities, that would have been taken away from us because the elders would say, that's what you're doing, that's your job, this is your job. And you smile and you take it and you do that job. You can do other jobs, but basically there's no emotional wrangling about who should be doing what. It can change, but it's taken away from the partnership. And as I said, 80% of divorce citations are irreconcilable differences. And the biggest factor in that is who contributes what to the communal table. So, has anybody had a partner that they've had an argument with about, well, you drive so much a week and I only drive this, so I'm only going to buy 3 tyres for the car. I'm going to buy 1 and you're going to buy the other 3. Anything like that? Wow. Is this in Bristol? I have to come over. I mean, for this is important for me because when I was in the Pyrenees, where I still have a home, it was an aspiration of mine to set up a community-based land project, and I had this dream of everybody living together and everybody just naturally being aware of what was fair. And we wouldn't have to argue, we wouldn't have to have contracts, and it would just be wonderful. But of course it doesn't work like that, because everybody has different aspirations about what's fair. And for me, it was very enlightening to hear 2 people arguing about washing up liquid, and which went along the lines of, well, I bought, your turn to buy the washing up liquid. Yeah. Well, I'm not buying it because I bought the concentrated one this time and you only bought the cheap unconcentrated one, so I should only buy that once and you buy it twice. And then it went on to, oh yeah, and you're the person who bought the toilet rolls that have got the huge bit of cardboard in the middle and it looks big but it's only got 100 sheets on it, whereas I buy the one with 200 sheets on it. And something quite small, and then it leads on to other things that people have been harbouring and niggling away frustrations about each other, and it comes out all because of disagreement over the washing up liquid. So this doesn't just apply to intimate relationships. Of course, it applies to whoever we're sharing a living space with, is that we want to feel that we're giving fairly and the person we're sharing with is giving fairly. But it's when there's just two of you and you've got to figure it out, it can become confrontational. Whereas, in the community at large, that doesn't happen. So that's the one benefit, is the community takes a lot of the strife out of a couple's relationship in terms of how they live practically.
I think it does happen in the community when you hear about people, when you hear people saying, oh, it's such and such a group of people that are draining resources, or it's the health services are full of such and such a group of people, it's scapegoating. But I think it does happen in communities.
Yeah, well, it depends on how, it's why I'm keen to point out the higher functioning communities. And these for me are communities that would be probably Native American or African or Aboriginal First Nations people communities. Unlike, unfortunately, the communities that we've got today or that we haven't got. I know my parents all lived in a street originally with their parents and families, and like the old people who were interviewed for the Queen's coronation, all their doors were open, and if my parents got fed up with me, there was an uncle or an aunt, and off you go. And two reasons then, two things that an intimate relationship where there's children involved. One, there's a lot less hassle with kids, and secondly, with the practicalities, it's something that's sorted out for us. And this is why I guess people get on in the armed services and and the services in general, like police and the fire people, is because there's no room for misinterpretation. This is your job, and this is how it works. Yeah, and it's not down to two individuals to sort it out. The Findhorn community, anybody heard of Findhorn? Mm-hmm. They are probably one of the most successful communities ever, but they rule it with contracts, and it's like that. Yeah. But it's taken them many years to figure that out, but it is a really successful community.
What do the contracts involve?
Well, you basically get like a 15-page document to say that these are the values and the rules in which we operate our community. And you put down a chunk of money up front as well. So you, as well as having your role, if you fall short of your skill contribution or your work contribution, then you're liable to lose money.
Where's this community?
Sorry? In Scotland. But it functions, and there's clarity.
Yeah. It does seem to me about values, because what you were saying about people having disputes about washing up liquid and stuff like that. Initially on the surface it seems a bit petty and a bit facetious to be arguing about such a thing. But when you were saying it, I was thinking, well, for myself, if I felt like I was giving something of a certain value and then not having that, repaid back, then is that balance and this idea of, I feel like there's a lot of in our society, we want to get something for nothing, a lot of the time, you know, we don't want to give like
Yeah.
equality, you know, and the other side of that a bit can also be that, what was I going to say? Well, with that, it seems like an idea of like being elegantly frugal, you know, to do more than required, yeah, and take less than allowed or needed, you know, which is brilliant if people are on that same ethos, you know, but if they're not, I forget the other slant that I'm going to now, but there is like another side to it where, it'll cut if it comes back to me now.
We've got plenty of time. Where I want to go to now is why these relationships are failing, and apart from not having that community support, because the other big one is in our higher level communities, not those that arrange marriages for us, but in our communities, our elders would have seen how we grew up, seen our characteristics, our strengths, our weaknesses, and they would have steered us to a potential intimate partner to say, she has these qualities and these weaknesses, he has these qualities and weaknesses, and those two are going to make a beautiful relationship and are going to nurture each other, and they will teach each other and will actually drive each other spiritually, and they will both be elevated. And the reason for this is because the elders know that after you've got all the practical stuff done, the hunting and the gathering, that in the finality, the purpose of the tribe is to build the aggregate spiritual awareness so that it rises. That's where they all want to go. Okay, it's not, you know, we all eat and we all drink and we have fun and then we die and somebody else takes over. Their goal is to see the aggregate spiritual awareness of their community to rise, which is why your relationships in that community are important to them. So if they see there's something going wrong, immediately he and she, or he and she have got somewhere to go to share, and not just somebody who's going to agree with them, oh yeah, he's a complete git, or what are you doing with him, and you shouldn't be spending your time. But actually people who are going to give constructive advice and guidance. And the elders, if they can't bang their heads together, will then ask for a healing from their shaman, or ask the shaman to go and get advice for this couple such that they can move over their difficulties. And that support structure is there all the time in that community. And of course, you know, in our community too, we don't have that. We're supposed to sort it out for ourselves. And the other thing that we don't have is in the pairing. I mean, we're just thrown together. So how does this throwing together work? I mean, what brings us together? And this is why intimate relationships fail. And the first reason is because we enter them for unhealthy reasons. So, who can give me an unhealthy reason to get into a relationship? Because you're lonely. Yeah. There are much less healthy, but yeah. And that's a big one for all of us, is loneliness. So we want somebody. Let me give you one that's really not good. I want to save him. I can save him. Come on, got to be some more out there.
What you're thinking of in terms of I can make that person a better person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a smack addict. I'm not a smack addict, and I can I can sort them out.
I had my ex's mum say to me, when I first met him on the phone, I hadn't met her yet, oh, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, he's really happy. Please, continue to do that. And I'm not telling you that you have to be with him, but and I kind of saw that was a really nice thing for her to do because she was feeling nice about her son being happier and okay, but it felt very sort of prescribed and I should. There was a lot of should.
Oh,
for
yeah.
me. And job. Yeah, it didn't sit comfortably. My initial reaction wasn't like, oh, that's great. I felt a bit like, oh, not great here, and I don't know what that says about me or where that leaves me, because what you just said about in the tribe and parents having an ideal from who is there, who would be good for each other, but this person had never met me. They'd just seen the supposed effects from my interaction with their son.
Yeah.
But that. Well, there's a lot to be said about that, isn't it? It was like, the very beginning, the honeymoon stage, all the rest of it. There's, myriad reasons why you could be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I was going to say, that's another big difference is the honeymoon stage. When in our communities, in our tribal communities, the process would have been is that you get picked as a pair, and you don't have to go along with it, but it's strongly encouraged. And then you work out how you're going to live together. The practicalities are integrated together, which is the bit that a lot of us can struggle with. And then comes the romance. It's after you've sorted out how you're going to be together, and then you get the romance, and then possibly the children afterwards. Whereas the model that we have is explore with a complete stranger. Then we have the romance very quickly, followed by the struggle, and then the commitment or not. And invariably, there's no commitment or not the right commitment. And it's in the struggles that's where we get what are called the teachings. And unfortunately, not many of us stay around long enough for the struggles and to get the teachings, and we take the view, oh, this isn't working out. He doesn't understand what I want to do, Oh, she's not doing at all what I thought she was going to do, and so rather than work it out, you quit and you move on to the next one. But our spirit says, well, if you're not going to make sense of this one, i.e. struggle with the teachings, take them on, develop your values, then why should you go any higher? So have another one. And that's how we get stuck in patterns of relationships, is because we don't want to do the painful work, the struggle of sorting out why it is it doesn't work, and think, oh, well, that doesn't work. I'll try another one.
Disposable.
Sorry?
Our society is becoming quite disposable.
Yeah.
With things, technology, relationships. If it doesn't, if it's broken, just throw it out, get another one. Don't work at things as much.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you are just going to be flogging a dead horse. Sometimes you can't resolve. Sometimes problems are unresolvable, and you have to know then that you can walk away. When I think many couples don't walk away because they're scared, but sometimes problems are unresolvable, and it does take strength to break away from that.
Yeah, that's right. And there are so many people who stay in an unhappy intimate relationship because of fear of what else there is. And so rather than face up to having the struggle, especially with older people who are not so keen to challenge their emotions and their spirits, they have this knocking, And instead of working on it, getting some therapy or some counselling, they just live in this emotional divorce, and they build a wall around each other. And they live together, and that's how it is. And now and again they'll lob a hand grenade over the wall at the other one and press their button, and then the other one will lob something back. But rather than address it and sort it out, that's too painful. And anything else outside is too painful. So I'd rather live with the negative benefit of the comfort that I know, rather than what might be out there could be worse. And some people go all through life like that and never develop. Never what I call ripen. Like everything that nature's made has a point where it becomes ripe, and that's when it's ready. And that's what we're supposed to do as human beings, is ripen. And that's by developing our spirituality. That's the nirvana, the goal. So coming back to why we go into relationships, unhealthy reasons. What about the trophy? Posh Spice didn't marry David Beckham, because he was a wonderfully spiritual, practical, down-to-earth guy. She didn't marry the plumber or the heating engineer or the car mechanic. And the same with film stars. They're up there and they say, well, I need a trophy. Don't really need a person. So I'll have a trophy. And I'm sure some of us know somebody who's gone after somebody, pursued them for an intimate relationship on the basis of how wonderful looking they are, or how much money they've got, or how, they're a celebrity. It's not to say they can't give you a teaching. So, when we get into a relationship, when we start, coming back to the statistics, where 80% of divorces arise because of irreconcilable differences, then why aren't we bringing those differences out up front? And this comes on to what I call the undeclared expectations. So you meet somebody and you think you're getting on really well, and then there's the possibility of something quite solid developing. That is the time to get out your undeclared expectations, the ones that you haven't made clear yet. And a lot of people go into a relationship and think, oh, it's going really well, I'm not going to rock the boat and tell them this now. I'll wait until we've been together for 6 months before I tell them that I'm considering the gender change, or that I'm actually an alcoholic, or I'm a drug addict. We all go into a relationship without saying what it is we want. And there are the things that we know we've got, we bring to relationship, like, well, I want a replacement for my mum, and you seem like you're a good cook, and you've got a nice house and it's tidy, and that's what I want. Yeah. Or a woman could say, oh, well, I haven't got anywhere to live, I've got 2 kids, you've got a big house, so I'll come and live with you. And then, these are the simple practical ones. We agree about non-smoking. We say that, 3 nights a week I want to go to yoga, and so I would like you to cook for me 3 nights a week. Simple things like that. Or a guy saying, I want to go down to the pub and watch the football on Saturday nights with my mates. Well, that's fine. And these are the little things that can become big if we don't have them out front. And then if things start to go wrong, we can bring people back and say, well, these are the expectations that we had. The dodgier ones are, of course, the ones that we've got, which are issues relating to childhood or previous adult relationships, which we don't like sharing. So, as some of you may know, the two biggest issues that arise in intimate relationships are abandonment and engulfment. And how usually it's the man who fears the engulfment, like you're getting too close, I need to get away, and it's the female who fears the abandonment.
Can you clarify the definition of engulfment?
It's being when you're being held and you can't do anything about it. Okay.
So like someone's taking over your life.
Sorry?
Like they're taking over your life.
Yeah, and typically a horrible example of where this commonly comes from is when we're very small and being potty trained, and parents hold you, you're not going anywhere until you've done this. And you're powerless to do anything about it. And now you want to get free, but you can't. And it's something that's gone in, hundreds if not thousands of times, that you're powerless. And when you're being held, you're now feeling uncomfortable because you're powerless. And the abandonment is it's like when you're a toddler, very small, and all of a sudden mum disappears. She's gone out to the kitchen, and now you've got this awareness that she's gone. And now you've got no control over it. When's she coming back? Is she going to go again? And that goes all through our infant lives. So there's always this, human beings need to be held in a balanced way. And it's said that human beings develop when they're held, so held in the womb, held at mother's breast, held by the parents, held by the tribe. And that's why I say that an intimate relationship is a place where two people are held so that they can safely explore and develop emotionally and spiritually. But it's it's when we go into our adult relationships and we expect something that's happened to us as a child that's damaged us to be repaired and addressed by this person we're now committing to be with in an intimate relationship.
But not everybody on the surface of it seems to know this. We all kind of seem to know this in our heart, yeah? But most people I know go into relationships because they want to have fun, and they do want the other person to kind of feed some of their needs and, for want of a better way of putting it, but make their life better, and there is a lot of the not wanting to be aloneness. And so if somebody's not on the same page as you of this idea of wanting to be held and nurture each other and grow as people together, what do you do?
Well, no. You see, the starting point of the foundation of any relationship is that it's safe and that nobody's getting hurt or abused. And so a relationship where two people feel safe with each other, a relationship where they can be their authentic self, where they can take off the masks. So a lot of people go into a relationship pretending to be something to please the other person. And that consumes a hell of a lot of energy in you, keeping up that facade. So in a healthy relationship, the starting point is that as we are, you know, with our body odours, with our runny noses, with our spots, with all the things that we're unhappy about with ourselves and we might want to improve, but we want to be accepted for what we are now in that relationship.
And I agree with that, but from my experience, the mass majority of people, that's what they want, but they go in with the mask on, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And then the other person's probably gone in with their mask on as well. So where is this beautiful, you know, two people pretending to be things they're not? And that's, you know, it's so important that we are our authentic self, because otherwise we're just actors. You know.
And that's when the breakdown tends to come, isn't it?
Well,
When the mask starts to peel off.
Exactly.
It does. It does, yeah. And while we're on masks, this is an interesting one. In terms of the physiological drivers, you might know that a woman who is hormonally pure, who's not on a pill, can smell a male whose gene pool is complementary to hers and will be attracted to him. And that is because a woman knows that she is going to be the prime parent, is going to have to look after this child, and wants it to be as resistant as possible to diseases and genetic issues. So she has a nose and knows when a man offers the best possibility for the strength of her child. Now, and this is a fact, there are women who are on the pill, decide with the masks on, not just the pill mask, and then they marry somebody, they decide, right, it's time to have kids, and now her hormone sensing is just natural again, and she smells the guy, she's not interested anymore, and leaves. Because now she can smell it's not the one for her, and it's not in her interest, in her child's interest, for him to be the father. So these are the other things that drive us, that are less than helpful today. And there's it's called the T-shirt experiment, where it's either a rugby team or a football team. And there was an anonymous sniffing, and these women picked out guys, just, you know, so scientifically, those whose gene pool was the healthy complement of their own. It's amazing, isn't it? And you know, and these are the things that predispose us, which hopefully, you know, there are so many kids in the world now, and unfortunately not all of them looked after as they should be, so we can be a bit more discerning about who we have as parents. But, you know, biologically, the guys are just meant to go out there and sow the seed, and the women are looking for the guy with the strongest gene pool to complement hers and to provide.
Do you think that's why there's so many single women around, because they're not taking the pill and they can just smell that men are useless?
Yeah, well, what's so sad is that, I mean, all these single mums are fulfilling a, you know, biological function that's been in us for tens of thousands of years, but they've lost the support of the community, which wouldn't allow that to happen. You know, you wouldn't be allowed to have the kids until you demonstrated to the tribe that you were a solid couple. So, yeah, it's. I think for single mums, it's a huge challenge, because they fulfil the biological function, but, you know, without the support of the community, as should be there for them.
Has that T-shirt experiment been reversed with men smelling women's sweaty
Well,
t-shirts?
I looked for that. I didn't have time to research it thoroughly, but generally speaking, the guys are not so fussy.
And it's
Yeah,
Yeah, so that would be the test for them,
yeah,
is to see when she's most fertile.
yeah, yeah. So if he's got a choice, you know, of where to sow the seed, he'll see who is where in their cycle. Amazing, aren't we, as animals? Yeah, so, yeah, the other, so who can give me some, yes, well, we've only got a few minutes left, but who'd like to offer some reasons, you know, good reasons for getting into a relationship with somebody?
I think what you just touched on as well, biological pressure. Like maybe you want to have kids, so you quickly find a man. Probably not the best one, but another reason.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, gosh, it's such a big thing for a woman, isn't it, to want to have kids normally. And that's, you know, that's what nature's engineered them with incredible efficiency to do. And how strong is that? You know, the biological clock ticking. And then, you know, but then that's where when you go into a relationship, get the expectation out there up front. I like you, I think we could get on, but I want you to know I'm at this point in my life where I really want to have kids. Whereas, you know, another way of doing it might be, well, I'm not going to tell him that, that's going to put him right off, but what will happen is after 6 months I'm going to forget to take my pill and I'll be pregnant and it'll all be all right. Yeah. But always in a relationship, if you can get up front, declare what your expectations are, it makes for a much more solid foundation. And really, the only time you can do it is up front, because otherwise you're on the back foot, you're backpedaling. Oh, you didn't tell me that. What do you mean you want to have a kid? You didn't tell me that. And then the other thing is of course, we can't know all the time what it is important to us. I mean, yeah, we should have a list of what is important to us in a relationship, but there will be things that come up. And the other thing that is in a healthy relationship is when things come up, is to address them and not sit on them. And how many of us have an issue in a relationship that comes up and think, oh, I don't want to share that with her. Oh, I can't face telling her that. And then something else happens. Oh, God. And then we sit on it for weeks, months, and then all of a sudden something else happens and the whole thing goes poof. Yeah.
There's also the thing of picking your fights, because you don't want to keep picking up on everything that comes up, because you could just be constantly nagging at that person. But it's kind of quite a delicate balance there.
Yeah.
What to keep to yourself, or breathe through, let go.
Yeah.
To kind of get it to say, you know, hang on, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And you can control how you put across your feelings, but you can't control how that person receives it and how they're going to react.
No.
So that's really difficult.
It is difficult, but if you tell somebody something, you are then empowering them to be able to receive it and do what they want with it. Whereas if you don't tell them, then you've disempowered them, and then they can quite rightly say, well, you didn't tell me this. Yeah. So, and so many of us, for fear of upsetting, I would rather tell them how they want to hear it rather than how it really is. And of course the big risk there is that that's putting the mask on again, or developing the mask. And that's us acting again. And that's all that energy that we burn. It's like, you know, if somebody has a mistress or a lover, and how the amount of energy that they burn keeping up the game. And it's just not worth it. So in a healthy relationship, we put up front and say, I'm really looking forward to maybe embarking on this journey with you, but I need you to know this about me, and this is what I expect from you. And maybe there are things that you'll miss, but you need to be safe in a relationship, feel comfortable, such that when something does come up, you can say, this is how I feel. So, like, the husband who tells his wife that there's a woman at work and she really understands how he feels, and they spend a lot of time talking together, and it's not a sexual relationship at all, but he feels really comfortable in talking with that woman. And his wife can either say, oh, okay, and internalise it, and go and tell her friend about it and not say anything to him. Or she can say, well, I want you to know that I feel uncomfortable with that, and I want you to know that I'd like to have that closeness with you. And what can we do about that? Rather than, as a lot of people would do, is, oh, I'll tell my friend. And then just sit and let it fester inside, eat away, until something else happens. Like he didn't do the washing up one evening when he said, and then it all comes out. And you'll see that woman and talking to that woman, and so it's, and in terms of feelings, it's important that we acknowledge our feelings. So if we feel sad or we feel jealous, we feel angry, is to acknowledge the feeling and let it run through us and work with it. And not go and switch on the television, or go down the pub or down the wine bar, or I'll go to a dance class. But sit with the feeling, because the feeling won't go away until you've worked with it and worked through it.
How would you work with it to work through it? Could your dance class not be a way of doing that?
No, you just sit down quietly and meditate on the feeling and why the feeling is there. And then what you can do is, because most of us just want to put the feeling aside because it's uncomfortable, it's hurtful. Whereas if we work with it, but we say, I'm going to acknowledge the feeling, but I'm going to act so that it doesn't drive me and make me do things, like go and get a large gin and tonic, go gambling, and it doesn't stop me from doing things.
Good drive you into doing something positive.
Yeah.
Like loneliness drives you into trying to connect with people more.
Yeah. But process it through. Why am I letting this feeling stop me doing something? Or why am I letting this feeling drive me to do something?
I think those can also be explored in dance or in art or music. So
Yeah.
sitting with the feelings, not the only way of dealing.
Yeah. But that's, a healthy relationship is where we can both share our feelings comfortably, And we might say, and anything that we don't like about ourselves, and we can say, look, I want you to know that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'm working on it, I'm doing well, but I want you to know that, so that this is what you're taking on. Or I want you to know that I suffer from issues of being held too close, so sometimes if you're holding me, I'll shrink away, but I want you to know that. Yeah, and as I say, be your authentic self. Be you, and be loved for being you, and love that other person for being them. I mean, we all aspire to making ourselves better, but the starting point is loving ourselves as we are, and being honest with ourselves, and then loving somebody else.
But if they are unreliable and let you down,
Yeah.
how do you love them for that?
Yes.
You can love them in spite of that, but that's
It is. Yeah.
it's not you loving that part of them.
Are you happy to go on for a couple more minutes? Yeah? Okay. If somebody keeps letting you down, yeah, then you can say, once you're sure that you've made it clear to them that this is now an issue for you. So you can say, for example, I've noticed that you've started smoking again, and that's, you know that I don't like smoking in the house. And you said you weren't going to smoke in the house, but now I've noticed that upstairs you're smoking. And that's something I find really hard to deal with. And if you want to smoke out there. And then if it gets worse, after an agreement that they won't do it, then you have to say, well, look, I love you, but because of what you're doing, I'm going to have to love you from over here. I can't live with you here, like that. Or similarly, if somebody's having an affair and you've agreed to be monogamous and there's a slip up, because all of us, we all screw things up, we make promises, but we all screw things up. But there is a difference between screwing it up once and then screwing it up serially. And then if we love somebody, we say, well, this was what we agreed, and I can't be with you like that. So I shall still love you, but I won't be in this relationship with you. I'll be somewhere else loving you. Because those are the choices, is that if a couple have an issue, they either acknowledge the issue and decide to work together on it, or they decide to love each other from distance between them.
And that's the crux, isn't it? It's being straight and being honest and being loving about being your honesty.
Yeah.
And then if you're not met in that, then you need to assert what you're prepared to put up with or not.
Yeah.
Which is boundary. And that's when sometimes it comes apart. Like I was saying, that person isn't necessarily wanting to work with you in that way.
Yeah.
Which can be quite sad. But it's like, well, then, as that person said, it's like staying and flogging a dead horse.
Yeah.
And I can't do that to myself. I can't do that to them. That's not good for them either.
Exactly. You both become stuck. Yeah.
That's the irreconcilable differences.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think that they could be reconcilable if you both wanted to. A lot of things that are supposedly that term.
It takes both of you to want to reconcile things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If only one person wants to reconcile, then you can't make the other person.
No.
You can't make another person
No,
want to work through it.
No, of course not. Of course not. But that's the whole our throwaway society.
Yeah.
That's, it's the mentality of like, well, I'll just go and do something else.
Yeah.
Nothing's really built to last anymore. And that's a shame. That's sad, and we all lose something from that. We lose the people knowing each other and having the doors open and feeling safe in community.
People know you well over a long time.
Well, tomorrow there's a workshop. Is it 2 o'clock?
No, it's 2 hours from 3:30 to 5:30.
Looking, which was talking about more about the healthy relationship, and it looks at how we can explore a healthier relationship with us. Because if we're not in a healthy relationship with ourselves, it's unlikely we're going to be able to find a healthy relationship with somebody else. And then also we look at if we're in an unhealthy relationship, because once we've agreed a definition of what is a healthy relationship, we look at a current or a past relationship that you've had and say, why did I choose to stay in that unhealthy relationship? And also there could have been, with this new insight on a healthy relationship, You could have been at a time in your life, or you could be now in a healthy relationship and you could be unhappy. So why are you unhappy in a healthy relationship? Or equally, you could be in a beautiful, healthy relationship and want to know, how do you make that even healthier?